Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen podcast by Eastmans. Now your host, Todd Helms.
Hey, sports fans, Todd Helms here with the brand new Wingmen podcast. We are venturing out, if you will, into the world of podcasting with Wingmen. Obviously, you've come to know us from our YouTube channels and our videos and social media presence, but we thought, you know what? Podcasting world is someplace, that's a space we haven't occupied, so we're going to run with it, fly with it. Maybe that's a better choice. I don't know. And this is the first of, hopefully, a lot of podcast episodes. We're going to try to bring you them from the studio, from Skype, and from the blind as well next fall when we dial season up. So I have Brandon Mason here with me. I have Dan Picard here with me from Beyond the Grid. Brandon is one of the affiliates with one of the guys we work with at Eastmans. Kind of a big cog in that wheel.
Kind of a big deal.
I don't even know what he does, though.
None of us do.
Just acts like you're working.
The creepy coworker.
And I've got the intern, soon-to-be full-time employee, Luke Washington. It was Luke's last season was Luke's first season in the blind, actually. He'd never done much wing shooting before. In fact, I don't think. And we stuck a camera in his hands and said, come on, you're going to go. Well, you all know how, well, maybe you don't know how, but in the world of filming wing shooting, in the world of filming duck hunts and goose hunts, a lot of times the cameraman gets the last hurrah, as Dan can attest to. There's been a lot of hunts where once the footage is captured, once we get everything laid down that we need to do, you guys get to shoot.
Yep.
So I'm going to dive in and let Dan and Luke kind of talk about things from a cameraman's perspective on that. And Brandon, because Brandon and I get to see it. I mean, you do quite a bit of filming too. Unfortunately, my ugly mug is on the opposite end of that all the time. And so I don't get to run the camera a whole ton, and it's probably a good thing because I'm not great at it. But Dan, what's it like? What's it like filming waterfowl hunts compared to big game?
I was just thinking about this, is that myself and Luke probably have perspectives on the opposite ends because, man, that's all I did when I was a kid is waterfowl hunt. All through college, high school, I was so addicted to bird hunting that's what I did, and then kind of transitioned into big game and archery, and I did kind of burn myself out on it when I was in college. And so for me now, it's the most fulfilling way for me to experience waterfowl hunting is to take somebody, do the video, and share that passion with everyone else, whether they're a first timer or whether me and you are hunting,
right? And
videoing that emotion and videoing just because it brings back good memories from when I was a kid, but I have just as much fun watching others do it. And so it just works great for me because I don't mind filming. I love it. I love filming birds. It's difficult. It's a challenge. And it's harder than filming big game. Just by the nature of our game.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people probably think about it from that respect because you're filming a very quickly moving target
right
at all times, and you're trying to keep it in focus and keep it in the frame and keep it zoomed in tight so you can see detail.
And half the time it's fast moving at the last minute. We got to get it, and the guns are going up, and you got to get the shot.
Right.
Yeah, so you don't have time to acquire it, really.
So, yeah, some of those situations we end up with on the river, the birds are on you pretty quickly.
Right.
And so you kind of got to be Johnny on the spot. So you guys have your work cut out for you out there.
It's very difficult, and I love that challenge. And when you go through and you're running on manual focus the whole time, and birds are coming in and out of your focal plane, and so you're constantly on the focus ring and filming, and it's super difficult, but it's super satisfying when you get a day of good footage and you have the right light And I can think back to some of that Saskatchewan hunting a couple years ago on those snow geese.
Yeah, then the wavies.
Yes. And filming those, I mean, that was just a treat because of the nature of the hunt up there.
Sure.
But getting the different days of lighting, the number of birds, and then, everybody filled out, a 20 bird limit per person or whatever it was. And then, hey, Dano, you're up. And so everybody's done except for the camera guy. You buy a license too. And so you get to, blast away at the end. That's as good as it gets for me because it's just a treat to film bird hunting.
I remember, I'm going to segue into a hunt from 2 years ago. I remember and I think you were on this hunt, Brandon. It was the very last day of season, and we were on a goose hunt, dry field goose hunt. And we had filled out except for Dan's. I think you had your limit of birds to shoot. And you got up, and it was your turn to shoot. And you got on the gun, and you knocked down 4 of your 5 birds. And so we're down to 1 bird, and we get a pair that comes in. And we're like, we know we can only shoot 1 of these birds.
That was the 30-mile-an-hour wind day.
Yeah, the wind was screaming that day.
Yeah.
Absolutely howling that day. And we called the shot. I don't remember who it was. Maybe Nick Kafkas called the shot. You set up to shoot. And as you're sitting up to shoot, as you get the gun on these birds, they cross. And you just about swatted both of them with 1 shot.
Right.
A Scotch double. But you didn't. And we were good.
And I remember just sitting there waiting for them because they were crossing back and forth. And that's, obviously what you don't want to do is blow them both down. And they got right back apart, and I was like, yeah, okay now. And then, as they were going back together, I pulled one off and, killed the one. But, it's
that's
fun.
That's waterfowling, too, or wing shooting, too, is it's such a dynamic thing. I think even more so than big game because in big game, most of the time, you're waiting for a specific shot on a single animal, even if they are in a herd, and you're usually taking your time. So at least with a rifle, bow hunting is different. It can happen fast because things are close quarters. But man, bird hunting is so reactionary.
Yeah,
it's so instinctive.
There's so much going on with that realm, and then you have the dog, and it's super fun to film a gentleman's bird hunt. Growing up, I did a lot of jump shooting and pass shooting, and that's fun, but it's pretty single-dimensional.
He uses that word "gentleman" pretty liberally.
But I'm talking about like a duck blind, blind, a dog.
It's intentional.
Yes, it's very intentional, very planned. It's just not zinging down the Flathead River on your canoe, jump shooting a backwater.
Right.
I mean,
right, which we all did. I mean,
yeah.
And still to this day, if we're honest with ourselves, a lot of the birds we kill, especially on the river, especially geese, a lot of those birds we're pass shooting.
Yeah.
We're just pass shooting over decoys, and they're close enough.
Right.
You're really trying to get birds to do it right, commit to the decoys, and you're fooling them, but that's not always the case. And sometimes you take the shots. Most times you take the shots.
Yeah, you got to pass shoot too, and pass shooting's great.
Yeah.
Like I really enjoy it. Snow goose hunting, whether or down here shooting Canadas.
Right.
It's all great, but just it's so multi-dimensional when you're decoying and the camaraderie and the dog. Mackinaw is big for me. Like that's one of the finer things in life that I appreciate is a quality retriever.
Sure.
That's out of all hunting of anywhere I've ever hunted or any types of hunt that I've gone on, watching a quality dog do work is
There's
very
nothing better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always said ever since I was in high school that there's nothing better than hunting with a great dog, and there's nothing worse than hunting with a moron.
Right.
And I don't know if the dog's the moron or the owner's the moron.
Usually it's the both.
Usually it's the owner.
Yeah.
Because, it's just a struggle to train. And, there are some dogs that just aren't good, of course.
Well, and we joke, it's usually both. But, some dogs just don't get it.
Right.
And a lot of times I think when it comes to dogs, you get out what you put in. And if you've got a lot of time to put into a dog, it usually shows. Mm-hmm. It usually shows. That dog usually responds. Almost all dogs usually respond to lots of one-on-one time, lots of training. It's the folks that don't have the time to put in that they struggle with their dogs.
Yeah, I've known guys that had really high-end bloodline dogs and paid a lot of money for them, and because they didn't do their part once they got them,
Right.
The dogs were terrible. And then I had a circle of friends for a while that another guy had a free yellow lab. Mm-hmm. No papers, no nothing. It was just kind of like, send me the paper, free yellow lab, who wants one? He grabbed one. And he spent, because of the nature of his job allowed it, he spent every waking moment with that dog and vice versa. And free dog, not supposed to be anything, was phenomenal because they had that relationship built.
Yep, had that relationship, and he probably was constantly running drills and training with it.
Yeah.
My first one was I had way more time than know-how, way more time than money, and my first one wasn't free but pretty close. And same thing. I mean, that dog went everywhere I went. We worked hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of drills. And, yeah, I mean, if I compare that dog, her, Josie, she had a phenomenal personality. She was an awesome dog and super smart. But if I compare her raw talent and ability to Mackinaw's, she's not even in the same league. But because I had all that time, she was phenomenal.
Yeah.
She was really, really good. And it was at a point in time where, kind of like what Dan said, I was doing nothing but goose hunting and duck hunting. And we killed lots and lots of birds, way more than I do even now, which is kind of hard to believe. But, yeah, it's pretty crazy.
So, yeah, I mean, that's what it is for me, is the dogs, watching people, the kids hunt, taking kids and filming all that and being able to capture all those moments. That's where it's the most fun for me. So I don't care if I don't shoot. That's fine. But I just love being there and capturing everything, and there's so much going on, and it's so fun.
Well, and I always appreciate it because Dan puts in a lot of time. He is the face behind the brand, Beyond the Grid, and he produces a ton of big game content in the fall. And we don't see you from about middle of August until November. You're gone. Yeah. You'll leave at 175 pounds and come back at 140.
That's an exaggeration.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And
I will admit it's hard for me to want to go out and film in December after a long season.
And that's what I was getting at was you still most days will say yes. I've had him say, well, what do we got for birds? Because he doesn't want to go out and sit in the cold when nothing's going to happen. But which I don't blame you. But I appreciate that because you realize that it's a team deal to produce what we produce, and you're always diving in and helping out. Luke, first year, this year, you got to do some of the same things that Dan did. Man, we threw you to the wolves, literally. Yeah. We were like, here's the hardest thing in the world to film. Get it done. Full frame, in focus. Did you get that? Why not? What's wrong with you? What are you doing? Pay attention.
Stupid interns.
Yeah. Well, the good thing with this is that everything else is easier from here on out when it comes to filming.
Yeah, this makes big game. I mean, yeah.
And going back to it, the big game side of things, I did some filming for Brandon, and I did some big game filming throughout the fall with different people. And, yeah, it was kind of a drinking from a fire hose for the first few months, and it was very interesting and very mind-blowing on how complex the whole thing is. I mean, you go in with an idea of, okay, this is what we want to do. Obviously, the goal is to get an animal on the ground, and sometimes it doesn't go that way. And
most times.
Yeah, most times, yeah.
On the big game side of things.
Right.
So then we transition you to waterfowl, and people think, oh, you're getting paid to go out and hunt.
Yeah, no. But for me, why I was so turned on about it is because, like you said, I'm green at the waterfowl side of things. I've never done it. And when Todd gave me the opportunity to go, and I was all on board, and I was very, very blessed with the opportunity to get that knowledge from your many years of experience. I mean, you've been doing it since you were how old? teens.
Long time.
Yeah.
My whole life.
Yeah.
Speaking of birds.
But yeah, it's very cool to see the way you work with Mackinaw. I mean, you guys are like you guys are like one person. It was very cool to see you guys work together, as a team. And back to what Dan said, I mean, what you said, that it's all about the amount of work you put in with your dog, and it showed. But for me, like working with you filming, it was different, because when you guys were out setting out decoys, you're thinking, in my mind, I'm like, what kind of shot am I trying to get? I'm like, how do I build this story, and create a production out of this thing? So, and that's what I got out from this season. It was very cool.
Well, you learned fast too, even with not only with a camera, with the shotgun in your hand. And I was impressed because decoying ducks and geese are easier to hit than pass shooting ducks and geese, no doubt about it. But you shot pretty well right out of the gate, which isn't generally, that's kind of the exception to the rule. Mm-hmm. I got to see some stuff, going back to kind of what Dan was saying about kids, is we took out a lot of first-timers this year. And I'm going to dovetail off of what you were saying about being a first-timer, and it's a lot to process and all that stuff, and you were doing it from a work perspective. Yeah. But from the hunting perspective, man, we had a lot of kids in the blind, a lot of first-time people in the blind this year that did exceptionally well. I think we took your son Hunter multiple days. We took your son Blake multiple days.
Yeah, he shot his first goose. Hunter
killed his first goose. We had
not a child.
Yeah, not a child, but we had Guy Eastman in the
first time ever.
His first time ever in a goose blind.
No, he shot a shotgun before.
Well, yeah, he shot a shotgun before. He's bird hunted, but that's not really the Eastmans' forte. That's not their thing. That's not what they're known for. And man, when he called me and said, "Hey, I want to go goose hunt with you guys on Friday," you could have knocked me over with a feather. I mean, literally. And it all stemmed from his daughter, Cora.
Yep.
Shouldn't say names.
I love that he admits that he watches the Wingmen films at home because his daughter loves watching Mackinaw.
Right.
That was. Right. I'm like, is anybody recording this?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But that was the impetus behind him wanting to go, is his daughter wanted to go on a hunt and watch the dogs. So we turned it into a #GirlDad Day, except with the exception you brought Hunter Man, and man, it was an epic day.
I've never seen so many pairs of pink sweatpants in a goose blind.
I know.
Pink and purple and all the colors are like, we're not going to decoy a single bird in today, but we did. Yeah, we did.
But we did, and that was the thing. It was kind of like, and I think Guy was a little like, this isn't going to work. They're going to talk too much, and that's the beauty of waterfowling in a blind. You can talk. It's not like an elk hunt where you're like, shh, quiet. It's not like that. They can talk. They can carry on. At one point, they were playing freeze tag outside the blind.
That's right.
And we'd just yell at them and be like, go hide. And they would go hide in the brush, and we'd shoot birds. And they had a great time. I mean, I don't know how many boxes of donuts we went through. And
that was the highlight of their day.
That was the funnest part of that hunt, was I was just chasing them around with the camera.
Yeah.
That was freaking hilarious.
Exactly. That was the best day. That was the best hunt of the year for me. And it wasn't. We didn't shoot limits. I think we killed 15 geese that day, which is good.
Yeah.
But it was the looks on the girls' faces. It was watching them cheer the dogs on retrieves. They were clapping and like little cheerleaders. We just released a video today, actually, from that hunt of Mackinaw, my lab Mackinaw, pulling off a pretty spectacular retrieve. And you can hear the girls in the background yelling and hollering and cheering too. Not as loud as the guys. The guys were all pretty ramped up about that. But
I've seen a lot of cool retrieves over the years, growing up in North Dakota, which is, one of the bird hunters' paradises in the United States. I've seen a lot of good dogs work, and I've seen dogs diving after ducks and just doing amazing things. And I even said that right after Mackinaw does this pull up on this bank. Looks like a human being boosting himself up. And I was like, I have never seen or heard of a dog doing that. That was the most amazing thing I've ever seen from a dog standpoint. It was phenomenal. I mean, that would be, to say that was a blind retrieve would be the understatement of the century.
Yeah. It's on top of a plateau that's higher than we were, and
it was impressive.
Pretty unique. That was a pretty unique deal as far as the situation goes, and it definitely showed his veteran status at 7 years old. A young dog would have really, I don't care how much well trained they are, a young dog would have struggled with that retrieve, simply because there's a lot of obstacles in the way. And then you got a river. They have a river to navigate, and then they've got a vertical sheer bank that's, I don't know how tall, but tall to navigate. And then they got to find the goose in the sagebrush on top of all that. I mean, pretty tough.
That's a good example of drive in a dog that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's bred into them. That's what separates them from the minor.
Yeah,
the minor leagues.
It
right?
can absolutely. I mean, breeding is no doubt a big part of it. And I did a lot of research and in finding Mackinaw and finding the line I wanted. And yeah, you pay for it. And then what we talked about earlier, the work that goes into it, nobody sees that part of it because it's done in the off season, it's done in the summer, and it's
time.
Yeah, lots and lots and lots of time. But back to the kids, that was just one kind of a sidebar from that story. Your son got his first goose that day.
Yeah, I don't know what was cooler, seeing him shoot his first goose or watching the three little girls yell at my 14-year-old son to say, "Hunter, let's play freeze tag." Yeah. And he looks at me like, do I seriously have to go play freeze tag?
And he did.
Now?
He went and played freeze tag.
He was a pretty good sport about it. It was hilarious.
all three of those girls were the same age. They're all 4 years old. And they're all, like you said, dressed up in purple and pink, and I mean, a couple articles of camo clothing in there, but not very many, that's for sure. But and then later in the season, we had Blake out, and he shot his first goose.
2 on one shot. That was awesome.
That's right. He Scotch doubled
on one. Yeah,
that was cool.
We had one flock come in, and he stood up. Dan's like, "Get your gun, get it to your shoulder, get ready." You were jacked up, man. Yeah. You were jacked up, and rightly so. He should be, because you want him to be successful.
I knew this was going to be the chance.
Oh man, they right in our face. Yeah. And he stood up and kaboom and folded 2 of them. And I think there were 4 or 5 in that group. We dusted them all.
Yeah.
But he started us off with that.
I think like a month later, he was like, "Can we go goose hunting again?" I'm like, "Dude, it closed a long time ago."
Yeah, he wanted to go again.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah. But there were several experiences like that, throughout the season. And going back to Luke, it was like I said, when you got a turn to shoot, there was one day you shot. I remember when you shot your first duck that day, and it was all you. Yeah. I didn't even stand up. I just sat there and watched. Mallard came in over the decoys, and Luke stood up and smoked him. I was like, man, I just watched him shoot his first duck. That's really cool. Yeah. And I think that more than anything, with what we get to do here at Wingmen, like the dog work and watching people go out and get their first bird. We had a young man, was it 2 years ago, up north of here, the landowner's son.
Oh, yeah.
We had those 2 kids out in that absolute blizzard in their blue jeans and hoodies. Talk about Wyoming tough, man. They were gutting it out, and they killed bird. Yeah. One of them killed his first goose that day, and that's just so cool to me. It's all about limits, or got to kill limits, and that's part of it, no doubt about it. I mean, you don't go out there to get skunked. You don't go out there to not get birds. But man, there's so much more to it, and I think that's one of the things that I want to focus on in all of these podcasts is, as we continue forward, is going beyond the pale, beyond the obvious, beyond that. Yes, we're going to talk about tips. Yes, we're going to talk about tactics. We're going to discuss gear. We're going to do all that stuff. But amidst all of that, and the overarching theme in all of it is the story of waterfowling, the story of wing shooting, whether it's pheasants. We got Hunter out and he killed his first pheasant last year, 2 years ago. And that's in that pheasant video that we put together. Whether it's taking Lindsay, another one of our camera people, out and shooting her first duck in the duck tornado video that we have.
That's right.
She never killed a duck before, and we're out there in the field, and we made her buy her license. And I mean, in the old days you couldn't do that, but we pulled out our smartphones and we got licenses and stamps and everything right there on the spot, and she was able to actually shot a whole limit of ducks that day. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm really after with this podcast, is exploring the stories behind the hunts. And I'm really excited to bring the listeners some of those experiences kind of through our eyes and through the eyes of the other podcast guests. I'm really excited about this whole venture, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time to sit down for a few minutes with me and knock out this pilot episode, if you will. And I look forward to a whole bunch more. I see doing this, what we're doing here, in the blind.
Yeah, that's one thing that'll be kind of fun with the Wingman side of things over big game, is there's more opportunity to do it in the field. I mean, Brian Barney's done a really good job of doing some of them in the field with Eastmans elevated, but it's definitely more of a challenge just because of the nature of the hunt's different. It's less social when you're big game hunting for the most part, and especially out west the way we do it, spotting, stalking, and coyoting out and being a fly on the wall. Whereas in waterfowl, I mean, man, like when Jim from Sitka was
Jim
with us
from Sitka,
sitting in the blinds and everything. I mean, man, what an opportunity to knock a podcast out while you're sitting there and even getting that action. Where it's like, whoa, here they come, and
Yeah, that day maybe not the first day anyway, because it was like 20 below zero that day. But
the second day would have been.
Second day we could have done it no problem. That would have been really cool.
Yeah,
and it's an added element, to what we are already doing with the video, because we're storytelling with videos too. And this is just one more way to capture that heritage and capture those traditions and tell those stories. It'd be cool to mic up the kids sometime and get their perspective on a podcast. I don't think I've ever heard a podcast with kids on it.
Yeah.
Let's mic them up, see what they have to say. I mean, that might be interesting. Probably have a lot of editing to do, but you never know. Probably wouldn't be any cuss words.
Yeah, I hope not.
There better not be.
Yeah, exactly.
If there is, then
Hunter.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I appreciate you sitting down with me for a few minutes, fellas, and taking the time. And it won't be the last one of these that we do. We'll have you guys back on probably as individuals and a team again. And I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Yep.
Thanks, Todd.
See you next one.
All right, so that is the pilot episode of the Wingmen podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And thank you to all of our partners who help bring this content to you. And until next time, we'll see you guys in the field.